There have been a lot of additions to the SEL this semester, which means a lot of new teams that don't know what it's like to experience a Bepic playoff prediction. I'm here to change that today, as once again, I am back to attempt to predict the SEL Season 5 Spring Split Rocket League playoffs, and we'll see just how accurate I've gotten in the years since I started predicting the SEL, the years where there may have been talks of a Bepic curse or requests sent into my Discord DMs by teams asking me not to pick them in the SEL playoffs or last chance qualifier or whatever it is. But all of that noise is soon to be silenced, as I am 100% certain my playoff predictions will be accurate here. So stay tuned to see what they are. First of all, if you don't already follow the SEL on all socials or Twitch or anything like that, now is a great time to start. Esports SEL on Twitter, on Twitch, and TikTok, all the big T's of social media. Make sure you are following the league because this is where Season 5 really gets serious, as the race for LAN is on. And today I will be using Real Albedo's prediction spreadsheet that he makes for the SEL every semester. So shout out to Albedo for putting this together. Wonderful coach, even better spreadsheet creator somehow. But let's get to it. I'm gonna transition over. Sorry for the flashbang. I want to show off the point distribution so far across the fall split, across the last chance qualifier of the spring split of the SEL. So this is what we got before us, as there are a number of teams still in contention, as you are guaranteed 12 points just by making it to playoffs. You can see at the bottom the teams that did not compete in the fall split or earn points in the fall split, like KSU, have 12 points already allotted. And you got squads like Old Dominion, Alabama, UTK, and FIU that aren't in the playoffs but have earned points. And for FIU, they have been eliminated, as have UTK, Old Dominion, and Alabama. They're just not red at the moment. And that means teams like East Tennessee State in third place right now, and UNC Charlotte are still in the running for LAN, believe it or not, even though they didn't earn many points in the spring split of the SEL. But without further ado, let's get to predicting. So in addition to the point tracking, Real Albedo has set up a prediction portion. It's got the fall split results, as well as a spot for LAN, as well as that does get filled out. And then, of course, we'll be using the spring split tab today. This link will be public. It'll be posted in the SEL server, probably already, by myself, as this video is going to go out the Tuesday before playoffs start. But it's going out Tuesday because South Carolina and UT Arlington are playing their match Tuesday evening. So I've got to get my predictions in so people don't think I'm cheating and using results that are already out to get my predictions done. Even though I'm recording this on Monday, it is going out on Tuesday before matches officially begin. So let's start. First up, it's a big one. 8 seed versus 9 seed. Florida Southern finished last in the winner's circle bottom 4. So they had no choice but to play George Mason. James Madison, South Carolina, and Florida all had their choices kind of given to them, whether it was first or second choices as to who they wanted to play. And Florida Southern was stuck with George Mason, so these top teams do not want to play GMU here. But that's for good reason. I mean, this is the George Mason team that eliminated King from LAN contention, effectively ending Big Wade's career in the SEL. And they're on a hot streak, too, at the moment. Placed top 3 this past weekend at Virginia Wesleyan's Collision on the Coast. And I think I've got them beating Florida Southern here. I'm going to say it's close. I think it goes to Game 5. But I give George Mason the edge. I don't know what exactly Titanium brought back to the team, moving from the coaching role to the starting position again. But, man, has their trajectory this spring gone practically vertically. It was like this at the start. Now it's like this. They're going straight up to the top at the moment. And, I mean, kind of makes sense considering they're playing Cumberland next. You are going straight to the top, and in a sense, with SEL contenders this season, as Cumberland definitely are SEL contenders here. And George Mason is taking a game, I'll say that, but they aren't beating Cumberland. Cumberland is going to have a fairly easy time, I think, in playoffs, and my predictions will likely reflect that going forward. A little bit of spoilers there, but we'll move down. James Madison and Auburn. Auburn snuck in to the postseason here, just narrowly beating out Florida Atlantic in the last round of the last chance qualifier in Game 5. And I don't think they've got a chance against James Madison. I think Auburn is the weakest team in the playoffs here, and it's close, but Auburn is the 12 seed, and that's just the fact of the matter. And for UT Dallas and James Madison, this is going to be a banger. These are two teams that I think have a pretty good shot at contending with maybe Bruton Parker for second place in the SEL at the moment. And I think James Madison actually pull an upset here. I think they have looked really good recently. A decent result at Collision on the Coast on land. But UTD, they in the winner's circle, I mean, look good against the Bruton Parkers. Went to Game 5 against both of them, but did come up short. And I think this is another Game 5er, but I think James Madison pull off an upset here. And I've got to pick and choose my upsets because it's tough to predict upsets in the SEL right now. We see such a strong top of the table in the Southeastern Esports League that it is really difficult for me to choose which top teams can go down. And I think UTD and BPC Academy are top teams that can lose, but it's going to take a team outside the top 4 to really step up and beat these teams. Next up, bottom side of the upper bracket, South Carolina versus UT Arlington. And UTA is a team that I want to believe in, but they have really been struggling lately. I mean, 1-6 in group play. Last chance qualifier, they looked decent but not convincing, and they are in the playoffs. I definitely think they are a top 12 team, but it is really tough for me to predict them to win matches here, especially as the South Carolina team fighting for LAN. I know how badly Cats wants to get to this SEL LAN, and to do that, they have to win games like this against the bottom side of the bracket to secure themselves enough points to make it. So I think it's a scrappy series. I think it likely goes to Game 5. I think UT Arlington can do that, but I think South Carolina get the W. Against Bruton Parker, though, I have a tougher time betting on the Gamecocks here, as Bruton Parker have looked beatable by some of the teams on the outside of the top 2, really, but they haven't lost yet. And for me, that's convincing enough to give them the win here. I think it's probably a 3-0. I think they take care of business against South Carolina and keep their reputation as, at the very least, a top 2 team in the SEL going, even though Cumberland has usurped them as the top squad in the Southeastern Esports League. So I think they definitely secure a top 6 here. And Florida and KSU, absolute banger. It'll be happening an hour later on Wednesday, otherwise this will be a shoe-in for our first streamed match of the night. But Florida and KSU, I think, can be really close, but Florida definitely look like the hotter team as of late. They play second at Collision on the Coast, almost bracket resetting Akron Gold in the grand finals, but it did come up short there. Still, second place in that event where you've got teams like James Madison and King, Daytona State, KSUB. I mean, the likes of kind of the top of tier 2 in CRL. Placing second there is a really good result for the Gators. And Larry was even saying that this is the best that they have looked as a roster. So they're finally really putting it together. And I think they can contend with the best of them in the SEL here. I think they take down a KSUB team that looked a little bit less than convincing in the last chance qualifier. Went to Game 5 in that last match of theirs against Clemson, and Clemson's a scrappy team, and KSU did have some tech difficulties in that series, but that's still not convincing when you're taking on Florida round 1, who have the resume to back up my prediction of them here. And I think they keep it rolling. I think they get some revenge for their loss on stream earlier this season. I think they beat Bruton Parker Academy. I'll say 5 for the dramatics. But Bruton Parker Academy shut down a Florida offense that looks very much improved since then. I think BPC Academy is still capable defensively of maybe limiting Florida, but when I watched them at Collision on the Coast this past weekend, on land, Florida looked extremely dynamic offensively, and Hammy Crackers seems to be in some of the best shape that I've seen him in the collegiate scene. And he's kind of not back to carrying the team, but he's having moments where mechanically he is taking over lobbies again. Not kind of taking a back seat and letting True Raid and Larry take the spotlight, but stealing the spotlight for himself, and then Larry and True Raid do the same in other games in the series, if you know what I mean. So I think Florida advanced to take on Bruton Parker in the upper bracket semis, which does guarantee top 6 and a good chunk of points in this playoff format. So I'm going to go ahead and predict that so we can really dive into the lower bracket and stay there for a while. I think Cumberland, start with them. 3-0, James Madison. I think they take care of business here. Lock in the full time because JMU is a team that you have to lock in for the full time of this series if you're Cumberland. But I think they sweep them. And then Bruton Parker, Florida can beat them. Florida can beat Bruton Parker in this set. But this is Bruton Parker's league still. They are the reigning champions from the fall. Cumberland hasn't taken that from them yet. They are still the reigning champions, and I just want to see that upper bracket final match between those two. See how far Bruton Parker can test this Cumberland team. So I'll say 3-1. BPC get the W here. Move on to the upper bracket final, where I don't think they get the best of Cumberland. I think this is a Cumberland victory. I'll say 3-1. But Cumberland advanced to Grands. Bruton Parker is sitting there in the lower bracket final, and the rest of the lower bracket is ripe for the predicting. But before I predict the lower bracket, let's check in on where the points are distributed. Now that I have filled out my entire upper bracket predictions, and I have marked the teams that are eliminated red, including FIU, UTK, Old Dominion, and Alabama. But with this, interesting top 8 with Etsu and UNCC as still top 8 rosters despite not playing the playoffs. And UNCC is in a dangerous spot here if KSU, UTA, UTD, or Auburn make a run, and they have to make a pretty deep run to displace UNCC because you have to get top 4 to get to that 24-point mark. So let's see what happens here. I'll switch back to the spring split page now. I'll start predicting. Florida Southern and Bruton Parker Academy is a difficult one for me because Florida Southern have looked really good lately, but even their current form that looks really solid and a lot more complete than they used to, I don't know if that can eclipse Bruton Parker Academy and the skill that they've got, led by Milk obviously, but as a team, their defense it is so impressive to me, and I think can be oppressive enough against this Florida Southern attack that I don't think can hold up if Bruton Parker Academy is playing their A game. So I'm going to give Bruton Parker Academy the win here. I'll say 3-1. I don't feel comfortable saying it's going to be a sweep because BBC Academy have typically dropped games, at least one game, even in series where they controlled the pace. So 3-1 there. South Carolina and Auburn, I think it's a 3-1. I think Auburn can take a game off of South Carolina. Same situation, but like I said earlier, I think Auburn is the weakest team in this bracket, and you couple that with South Carolina's motivation to win here and success elsewhere, they should be beating Auburn here and getting that set up series with Bruton Parker Academy. I'm going to keep going round by round here. Stick with UTD and UT Arlington. Second time these two teams have matched up this season. I love the rivalry surfacing here, but I think UTD at the moment is a cut above UTA, and even though the rivalry will push this the distance in my eyes, they always seem to go game 5 with each other. I think UTD come out on top, as of all the teams coming into the spring semester without having competed in the SEL before, outside of Cumberland, obviously, they have a huge asterisk next to their name at this point. I think UTD have the best odds of making a run to land, starting with 0 points. And then Kennesaw State versus George Mason. This one I have trouble with because George Mason have had really good form lately, but Kennesaw State can pop off, and I think I'm going against my better judgment choosing Kennesaw State, but it's time for some spicy predictions here. I want to see what KSU can do if given the opportunity to make a run here, and it would be a gauntlet going George Mason, UTD, and then Florida to try and get to the top 4. But I'll give them the win over George Mason here. Just for showmanship, I think they really need to step up to beat this George Mason team who can be so suffocating with their control and ability to play around each other well. But KSU, they've got that X factor in TNT, and I think he definitely leads the charge in this series as they beat George Mason. And advanced to play UTD. or I think they fall short. Like I said, UTD, I think they have the best odds of making a run here, despite not playing in the fall split to LAN, and they need to beat Kennesaw State to do that. Just an unfortunate bottom side of the bracket for KSU. I mean, having UTD, George Mason, and Florida all in that section of the bracket is really, really rough. So they dropped to UTD in 4. I'll give them a game there. But UTD advanced to play Florida. We'll talk about that more in a second, as South Carolina and Bruton Parker Academy are essentially playing for LAN here. South Carolina and Bruton Parker Academy need the win to get to LAN. BPC needed a bit more than South Carolina do, but I think South Carolina take a stunning Game 5 over BPC Academy and keep the dream spring split going in hopes of qualifying for the SEL LAN. I do think they fall short, though, against James Madison. I think top 6 is as far as South Carolina get, but still, good run from them, even to get up to that James Madison series. Bruton Parker Academy, I think, is the upset. South Carolina needs to lock in top 8, and we'll show off the rankings here in a second. But Florida and UTD now, this is going to be one of the best series of the tournament. Florida's already in good position to qualify for LAN, and UTD kind of needs top 4 to qualify themselves, but I think Florida looked really good recently, and I think they keep that form going through April and essentially get back to where they were in the fall split, even before the addition of this Cumberland roster, which was a top 3 placement in the fall split. You can't forget about how good they looked in the fall. I want to say 3-2. Oh, not there. Florida does not win 32 games. They just win 3. That's all you need to beat UTD. Advance to James Madison, a rematch of one of the best series of Collision on the Coast this past weekend. And this will hypothetically take place several weeks after that, but I know these two teams will have that in their mind, as they hadn't played before that Collision on the Coast LAN. And it was a phenomenal display of playmaking by both teams. Pigeon and Hammy Crackers looked like they were on a different plane of Rocket League skill. It was incredible. So this one definitely goes 5, though. I say Florida get back to that 3rd place match against Bruton Parker, and they are the team that gets the shot at taking on one of the solid top 2 teams in the SEL. As I promised, though, here's a live look-in at the top 8 here, as this will have solidified our top 8, if my predictions are to be believed here. And it includes a UNC Charlotte team that didn't even compete in the spring semester, just off the back of a really good showing in fall, as they got 4th place, and that was enough to get them to LAN in this hypothetical top 8. It'll be them, George Mason, South Carolina, James Madison, ETSU, Cumberland, Florida, and Bruton Parker. And now we're talking about seeding, pretty much, as Florida would have to, I think, win the grand finals in this situation to overtake Bruton Parker in points. So BPC pretty much locks first with a run to the lower bracket finals. And then Cumberland only gets 48 for winning. So this is pretty much locked. Though I will predict my top 3 just for the sake of it, because we need to know who wins in my hypothetical bracket here. And between Florida and Bruton Parker, I think BPC are able to beat them. I think the top 2 in the SEL are pretty evident. And I know I was in a similar situation last semester where I thought it was pretty obvious who the favorites in the lower bracket finals were between Florida and ETSU then. But ETSU surprised, and I think Florida can here as well. This is a good shot for them to take down Bruton Parker, but I don't think they're able to do it. I think another Game 5 happens. I'm very wishful when it comes to my Game 5s in my predictions, but I think Bruton Parker beat them in Game 5, and then BPC in the grand finals of the SEL, I think they catch Cumberland lacking. I'm going to say they bracket reset 4-2 here. They close it out. Bracket reset for the first time since Season 3, when Kentucky had that legendary grand finals with Tennessee on LAN. It'll be the first time we had a bracket reset since then, but after that first series was won by the Barons, I think Cumberland come back and close them out, nab that CEC spot, nab SEL supremacy, heading into our LAN at Huntsville, which is happening next month. I can officially say that. LAN feels so close, and CECC's even closer, first weekend of May there. I can't wait to watch Cumberland in this case, but whoever does end up actually grabbing that CEC spot compete there. I will be there in person, super stoked about it. And just in general, LAN is going to be hype. It's finally LAN season, so I'm happy to see everyone fight for their spots on LAN here in the SEL playoffs. A lot of good storylines going into the next couple weeks of SEL play. Of course, broadcasted at Esports SEL on Twitch. TJ and I will be in the booth for the majority of those streams, if not all. We're super excited about it. So, thanks for watching my predictions video as to what is going to happen in the SEL Spring Split Playoffs. I'll show the final points rankings as a result of my predictions. There you go. Nothing much else changed there, predicting the top 3. But, of course, as always, support my socials, my channel, Mr. Bepic on YouTube, Bepic Casts on Twitter for more SEL and Collegiate Rocket League content. I'll see you at Esports SEL for all of our SEL playoff streams.